Welcome back to the Titanium Hanger. This is Mike, and I'm coming at you with another video. This time I'm talking about part 4 of 4 of our Takara versus third-party series. This time I want to talk to you about the end of the G1 era. Now I've heard lots of people talking about when's G1 going to end? Is there an end to G1? And this keeps coming along and coming up in a lot of forums, online on Facebook pages, a lot of podcasts. I've been hearing it, and I've watched a couple of videos about it and stuff. And it's concerning to me because I am predominantly a G1 collector. And for that reason, I put a little thought into it, a little concern. And as we go through this, I'm going to bring up points from other videos and some discussion topics from the other videos that kind of support where I'm going with it. But basically, I'm going to break this into Takara and how they're adjusting and adapting to the market and what's changing about Takara. I'm going to talk about third party and how they're adjusting, adapting, changing, and what the kind of signs are, the writing on the wall. And then I'm going to get into just basically my personal beliefs. Before we get into all that, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. And then, of course, I want to hear what you got to say in the comments, because that's where we have a lot of fun. And just because this is video 404, that does not mean that these discussion videos are going to end or any of the other videos are going to end. This is simply just wrapping up a small section. There's many more videos coming down the road, so put on the notifications. So moving right into this, I want to talk to you will we see every figure made? Will it be completed? Or will we just in the end swap it out? So we're going to discuss all of that. But getting in with Takara. So Takara has made some changes. And the biggest change that they've made to how they operate and how they do business is that they've included the Beast Wars line in with the Masterpiece. Now I have a love-hate relationship with Beast Wars. Now I'll have a video coming talking about that. But Beast Wars should have their own numbering. And so it bothered me, and why is there a Beast Wars in there? It's not BW01, it's an MP, whatever they call it, 41, I guess. Why is it including the numbering of the G1 Masterpiece figures, and they're not G1? And I don't care about the 3 part series or whatever in the middle of Beast Wars where they see, spoiler here, where they see Optimus Prime and Megatron on the Ark and mess up Prime's face and fix Prime's face and all that stuff. That does not make them G1. So the reason I think they're doing this is because they're trying to get away from G1 in a way, and they're moving on to the Beast Wars. Now when they make the Masterpiece, the Bayverse figures, which actually transform from a robot into a vehicle, they gave them their own line, MPM. It's a whole separate segment. And they started with the whole numbering. But Beast Wars gets included, and it doesn't make sense to me. I don't hate Beast Wars. I have a love-hate relationship. I don't actually hate Beast Wars. I just don't want them to be numbered together. I think they're doing it because they're starting to slow down on the G1 releases, and they're substituting in Beast Wars. Now, obviously, there are all kinds of collectors in the world. There are people who love the Beast Wars franchise, people who love the Cybertron Armada, every one of those franchises. And I agree that those markets should be satisfied. But the fact that I think they're getting away from this. Let's look at the release schedule for Takara and what they've put out. So back in 2016, we had 4 solid releases. We had Ironhide and Ratchet. We had Hot Rod, which by the way, that's not the best Hot Rod, but it was a new mold, although it was a remade character in a way. And then we had Shockwave. So those were all 4 releases in 2016. And then in 2017, we got 2 releases. We got the Megatron, the MP36, and then we've got Sunstreaker, the MP39. Well, what releases for G1 did we get in 2018? None. And I know a lot of people that didn't get their MP39 until the middle of January or the beginning of February of 18, so they count that as an 18. It's still not officially an 18, it's officially a 17. So we haven't gotten anything in 18 except for some Beast Wars stuff, which isn't G1. And now we're going to get, in about 4 months, we're going to get another Prime and another Bumblebee, and I really don't think we'll see Hound hit by the end of this year. So we'll get 2 releases this year, and then we don't know about the future. There's not a definite hard release date or anything for future releases past the Bumblebee on the G1. But they're already mixing in a Black Arachnia, and we're getting into all those things. So what else is Takara doing? Well, they're remaking characters. They just keep remaking the same characters and not giving us new characters. And I think they're a little bit scared to release their Hound, because Fans Toys has done a pretty decent Hound. Now, the transformation isn't the best, but it looks amazing in both modes, which is what Fans Toys does, and Fans Toys nails it. And so with all that, I think Takara's a little bit scared, and you got to get into thinking about, does Takara believe third party has satisfied the demand for a lot of these characters, so there's not really a reason for them to make them. So it's almost like they don't want to put a figure out unless it is going to stomp out all the third party. And if you really look at it, there's not that many figures out there that Takara can do what they did with MP36 Megatron to make everybody want to sell their third-party Megatrons. With the MP39 Sunstreaker, like, that's them showing their dominance. And I don't think that they feel like they can do that much longer. And that's why we're not seeing so many releases. That's why they're trying to one-up themselves by making a better Prime, by making a better Bumblebee. And I can tell you that their Prime will be the best Prime. We can all live in denial like I did with MP36, but that one will be the best Prime. But I just don't see much past this where they're going to go that's going to beat what third party's done. I want to see them do it, though. I want to see Takara put out a figure that blows away the competition and shows their dominance, lets them exert their force. Their Bumblebee, and we're going to get into this Bumblebee of theirs. Their Bumblebee is one step in the right direction and one step in the wrong direction, but I'm actually going to talk about that when we get to some third-party stuff. The last thing I really want to talk about when it comes to Takara is the tune accuracy piece. Now, I am excited about the tune accuracy. Like, I just really felt like MP10 was lacking, and it just didn't look right. It was good, and I eventually warmed up to it and went after it, wanted to buy it, but I turned it down at first. And this MP44, I don't have that same feeling. MP44, I feel is right. I do think that stuff like the MP36, that one has some interesting look to it, even though it's hyper-tuned, because of the massive amount of panel lighting that's required to get it from one mode to the other and look perfect in both modes. So that's really what's going on with the MP39. But I have to say that Takara has the ability, but I think they're getting away from it. Moving into some third-party talk, what really got me on board with third-party, because I was really just collecting each Masterpiece release, and at the time it was one every single year, it seemed like, that would be released in the US, Toys R Us or Walmart or whatever. And then we started getting a couple of other releases in there, sometimes one at Walmart and one at Toys R Us, but I would get each one of those every year and then started buying like a double of them just for whatever reason. And then what got me into third party was KFC Transistor. And so during that time when Transistor came out, we saw new companies popping up, and every new company was making a G1 figure. There was something G1 popping up back then. And I wanted the KFC Transistor because it was, well, I was rocking the Combiner Wars one version at the time then of Blaster, and then it just didn't work. And that Transistor looked so much better. But I still to this day can't figure out why there's not another Blaster, another third-party Blaster, or Takara didn't take on KFC straight up with their Blaster and a whole series of tapes and all that stuff. But looking at that, I'm seeing with the third party, there's not a lot of new companies popping up. Who's the next KFC popping up with a Transistor? Or who's the next company popping up? Ace Toys. I don't care what you want to say about Ace Toys. They popped up with a G1 offering. And it may not be the best. It was okay, but not great. But at least they're popping up with some G1 stuff. Now we're seeing new companies that pop up are popping up with a different era of figure. And guess what? The collectors of those eras, of the Armadas, the Cybertrons, the RIDs, the Beast Machines, or whatever, those, they deserve to be satisfied in their market too. Just not for me. It's not G1. And so that's where kind of this goes. Third parties are starting to diversify. You know, I don't know if you've noticed, but MMC is a good company that has several releases that are, to me, the best in my collection. And yet, they've started diversifying 4 years ago, 5 years ago, with a reformatted line. And I just, you start noticing this stuff. And to me, there's only a handful of companies that are true G1, and that's Fans Toys is one. Now, I do have an issue with Fans Toys. It is an issue that I'm going to have a whole different video about. We're not going to discuss it here, but Fans Toys is true to G1. Like, everything they make is G1. That's, I think, one of the reasons why people love the Fans Toys, because they don't try to be something that we don't want. They are G1. The other thing is that X-Transbot is super G1. I just don't see them veering off in other directions. Now then we see companies that I still like. I love DX9 products. And a lot of it is super G1. But a lot of it is super not G1. Like their Gewaltz. Not so G1. It's kind of stylized. Their Chigger, I think, was a try. They tried to be G1. And, you know, they have their carry. Their carry is like G1 adjacent. It's not good enough to put on yourself and call it. You can't say this is a masterpiece. Rhodopus. It's not. It's like a alternate version. So with that, these companies that are diversifying, they've been diversifying for a while. I thought they were doing it because they just weren't good enough to hit the G1 aesthetic, hit that mark, or make a superior product. That was my belief all along. Like, they just couldn't do it. They weren't good enough. But it turns out they were diversifying because they didn't think G1 stuff was going to sell, or they didn't want to go head to head with the car. I don't know why, but you just look like Make Toys. Make Toys has the ability to drop a downbeat that everybody wants as the best jazz, and I want to talk about jazz in a minute. And then they also put out their Seekers, which make everybody want to sell their official Seekers because it just looks that good. But yet then they have this cross-dimension line. Now, there is a market for the cross-dimension line. I'm not in that market, and that's not G1, and that's not something that you'd see walking off of the like an ArcBot. So next thing I want to talk about is how I have had an overwhelming response of people saying that they want to see Takara make a jazz. Now, third parties made jazz, and I think that they're at the point of good enough. But what if Takara could come out and put out a jazz that stomps out everyone else, all these other third parties? And, you know, I start to wonder about that. But could the Make Toys hold it up? Could it hold a candle to what Takara would do? And so that's when we start to wonder. And I think these third-party companies think about that too. They think about what's the future ability of re-releasing these. Because a lot of third-party companies want to re-release. They make something, it's that good, it sells out. Let's make another production run. Let's make some more money off of that same mold. Let's repaint, recolor, whatever. But if Takara puts out a mold that blows their mold out of the water, that's over. But if they make it somewhat adjacent, slightly different, it's not 100% supposed to be G1, it's supposed to be different, then they could keep putting that out if there's a market and people are buying it. And that's what kind of started making me think about why would DX9 make this carry that does not look G1, but they could have easily just made it look G1. Next point I want to discuss is Legends scale. The Legends scale is kind of a way to kind of keep G1 going in a way. When they start running out of characters to make that are going to have a wide release and sell out really well. You know, even with the fact that now the main characters have almost all been made, and then there's probably about 30 characters still that could be made, but they're just so far out, like season 4 figures, and they're not popular enough for a company to want to take them on and put the resources towards it. And that's kind of the situation that we're in a way. With the Legends scale, though, that's not a huge risk, a $30 figure versus a $150 figure. And if you put out these Legend figures, we could probably round out every single character that exists in the G1 before, of course, that we'll do that before we finish the true masterpiece scale. And so that's kind of where they're going with this Legends. So So will G1 be complete in Legends, but we're still trying to complete it in 9-inch scale? Will Legends stop? Who knows? It's like, we're not there yet, but I would like to see this get finished and complete and have one of every figure. Now, the other thing that I see happening is Bumblebee. I told you we'd get back to talking about that MP45 Bumblebee, and I think what is going to happen is third-party companies are going to copy some of that engineering in a way and then come out with something that is similar but better. And then they're going to push Takara to a point to where, and I think that's kind of how it's been going all along. Takara puts out a figure, third party comes up with new ways to make figures better. Takara copies some of that engineering, and it's just kind of a vicious cycle of how it's been going for a while now. And those feet, man, there's just no excuse for those feet on Bumblebee. And I just really think that the overall concept of the Bumblebee and the idea of making him look like he walked off the cartoon is great, because I did think MB21 was lacking, but I don't think the execution was 100%. And I see this symbiotic relationship of Takara and third party copying each other and improving on each other as time goes by. And if you just look at 2014 and the releases, and I've been reviewing a lot of older figures, and I'm going to continue picking up and reviewing older figures I get for real cheap, and you can see the difference. Like, you see the difference from combiners back then to combiners now. And that's just the way it is, and that's how we get better. That's how we improve, and that's how we progress through this. So in my closing notes here, I want to discuss my thoughts. And I'm just going to be blunt. G1 will never end. I'll be 95 years old, opening an email, seeing that a punch counter punch is finally announced and they're going to make it. Probably, hopefully, a new company pops up, and there's 3 different punch counter punches to choose from, because Fans Toys X Transbots are working on theirs, while some new company, off the wall, Orange Skillet or something, comes out announcing theirs. And the thing is, I just don't see the roots of this ending. If you look at Star Wars is the same thing. Like, they try to get away from G1, almost collapsed the franchise because of it. Now they're getting, G1 Vintage, they're getting back to Vintage. Same thing here. The roots are what keeps this thing alive, keeps this thing going. And I really want to see Takara, want to see third party, to see all of them successful. But I do think we're going to see less G1 5 years from now, but we're still going to see G1. There's still going to be new releases. We're still going to have something coming out trying to cannibalize on another release. We're still going to have new companies popping up, but with that, we're going to see all of this robots in disguise, all of this Cybertron, all this Armada or whatever popping up. We're going to see Beast Wars, Beast Machines, and all of that. But I want to hear your thoughts on this. How long do you think we're going to be in this renaissance of G1 figures coming out? Like, subscribe, try to hang around.